Welcome back to the Breaker Bros, and tonight we have a special guest, Nick, who is Eric's commissioner in his fantasy football league. So I guess I'll let Eric go ahead and take it away.
All right. So we've been doing a fantasy football league. Me and Nick were talking. I think we're in the league's in its 24th season. I think I've been in the league about 20 years or so. We do an auction style draft, which allows you to do kind of whatever strategy you want. And this year I drafted all the Bengals. And by I mean drafting all the Bengals, I mean nobody else drafted a Bengals player in the league. I got Burrow, Boyd, Higgins, Mixon, Chase. I even got Uzama. I drafted the Bengals defense. I dropped them because I'm convinced that they are going to get strafed by Dalvin Cook, because I haven't seen anything to convince me that they learned how to cover running backs, running wide receiver, or running routes. So I feel like Cook is going to catch a lot of passes and score a lot of points. So I thought it'd be fun to have Nick on and have him talk a little bit about our league in general. And then I guess we can kind of talk about, the details of the strategy, so to speak. So how many? Okay, so just to let you know, I did imbibe a little bit before the draft, so I didn't write anything down.
And during.
Yeah, during. Yeah, somebody filled our trophy with whiskey, so we had some of that. I had a little bit of wine before to be classy, and then whiskey during, because I feel like that's the best. That's the way to achieve the best results when you're drafting in fantasy football. So how many players did we pick, and how much money do we have in the auction?
So pick a total of 16 people, and we've got $180 to spread amongst those 16. It's not like real money. That's just bidding money that we do to basically create an auction instead of doing the kind of traditional snake draft.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm a big proponent of the auction draft. I think it's a lot more fun because you can do fun things like draft all the Bengals. So I can't remember exactly how much I spent on each player, but I think I spent the most on Burrow because everybody knew I was going to draft Joe Burrow. Name of my team is Placebo Burrow, just an inside joke from back when Plaxico Burress played. I think somebody called him Placebo Burrow. So tied it into the Joe Burrow thing because that's funny. So start off the draft. I walk in and everybody's trying to figure out my draft strategy. And first thing Nick says to me is, because I was wearing my Joe Exotic t-shirt, Bengals hat. And he said, "Are you going to draft all the Bengals this year?" And I said, "Yes." And still,
and I did not believe him.
Nobody could stop me.
Him.
I mean, but at some point you had to think, like, wait a minute, maybe he is going to draft all the Bengals.
No, we figured it out because I think it was on Chase. It was a little late though. Like Mixon and Burrow had already gone, and we're like, "Oh, he really is drafting the Bengals." So Chase came up and you started bidding, and somebody was like, let's say $4 just to see if you would keep going." But everybody got scared. Like nobody was willing to just force you to spend money on random Bengals. We were worried you'd stick us with a Bengal.
No, I was
especially
taking
since
them all.
You had the only good ones already. So
they're all going to be good. See, look at the Twitter.
Except their defense, obviously.
Well, maybe I'll pick them back up. I feel like kind of a jerk for dropping them. But my plan was to try to win. Like I'm going to try my best to win the season. I don't think this is a terrible strategy, but also I kind of think that the draft is overrated in fantasy football. So I'm kind of trying to see how that goes. Like let's have some fun.
So, quick question. Normally when I do a fantasy football league, it's a snake. So in an auction, Does it still work like as a snake where people rotate in terms of picking the player and then it goes for auction? Is that
Yep.
wow? Okay, so
Yes.
wow, so you're able to get all these Bengal players with 16 teams.
No. We
No, it's
had
only 10.
10
10
teams.
teams.
Okay, but still,
10
that's
teams.
okay.
We had it was 16 players, right? We have 16 players per
16
team.
players on your
Oh,
team.
16 per. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
And
no kicker. But I would have picked McPherson because I think he's going to be a good kicker.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
we voted out kickers a few years ago. I think
trying
we
to vote
voted
out defense, but they keep sticking around.
Yeah. Because I think we voted out kickers before we had the Korean kicker in the NFL because I would have been 4 kickers had I known who was going to stick around.
Had you known that was coming?
Had I known that was coming, I would have voted to keep kickers for sure.
And I guess Nick, with your experience, when a team picks this many players from one team, does that tend to work out, or does that tend to fail a lot?
Usually that would fail a lot. No one's done it to this level though, so I mean, I don't
That's
know
true.
if the Bengals are good, I imagine it's going to work out fine.
Yeah. In fact, I don't think anybody's ever drafted all the players from a single team.
No, one year I tried to draft all the Colts,
Mm-hmm.
but that was like the Colts were awesome. It was like Edgar and James, Manning, Harrison, Reggie Wayne, and they were too expensive. I didn't have enough money to draft them. So
yeah,
the nice thing about the Bengals is they had a couple players who went for a good amount of money,
like $30, right?
right? And then for the most part, you could afford to get all the other guys, and you got Kelsey, right? Yeah, you still got an awesome tight end.
Yeah,
like the players that you got that aren't Bengals are pretty good, so that should help you.
Yeah, the Bengals were pretty cheap this year. I don't know why, but they were.
Well, because everyone's skeptical, so it's like I feel like people who tend to draft Bengals players high, which is me, we always tend to have buyer's remorse. No, for real, because like every time I drafted Mixon high, he got hurt. Every time
did
I
you draft Mixon this year though?
No, someone got him before me, so I'm like,
okay, Mixon's not going to get hurt.
He's going to have a good year. But here's the thing: I drafted Najee Harris because I was like, you know what? Because I feel like he could be really good.
Yeah,
but if he gets hurt,
if he's not,
then it's like,
if he gets hurt, then it's like, wow, you should draft all Steelers and Ravens.
I got Ben Roethlisberger and Najee Harris, but that's another story. I was going for Burrow, but like people kept on picking the Bengals players right before I could get them, so it was horrible from my experience.
Yeah,
but
you don't get
Nick,
to take full credit for Big Ben getting hurt this year. That doesn't count.
Well,
when you're like 50 years old.
Yeah, I think Father Time might take credit for that.
Yeah.
But
that'd be a good name for your team though, Father Time.
Yeah. I feel like if
I'm gonna do that next year.
If I were in a league and I saw someone doing this, I feel like this would be kind of like a self-sabotage. So is this league for money or is it just for fun?
It's not a ton of money, but there's money involved.
Okay, so
it's more for pride at this point.
Yeah.
So when you see someone doing something like this, does it do you get more excited because you feel like you can get more steals this way, or do you think it throws off the draft so much that it just becomes a bigger wild card?
Well, I mean, I'm not good enough to be able to get steals anymore. I don't pay enough attention to the NFL, so I can't really tell what a steal is and what isn't during a draft.
See, Nick's being modest. Half the people in our league, their draft strategy is just to draft people that they think Nick wants. So he hasn't been able to get a deal on a player for like a decade.
There is a bit of that too, which I really don't like.
It was really funny when it first started because
my wife still does it. My wife is in our league, and I swear to God, I am bidding against her every single person I want. And
but
like,
you need to print out a fake. You need to print out a fake draft list.
I am going to do that next year. I'm giving her a fake list that is completely different from mine. Yeah. And that way I will be able to at least get some of the players I want and she can't take them. or make me spend more money on them, which is what always ends up happening.
Yeah. So this is another thing to give a little bit of flavor of what goes on. So, what's like the highest we spent on a player this year?
This year, I think it was actually less than normal. Usually,
Hmm.
it's up in the low $60 range.
Hmm.
This year, though, I think the top running back went for 53. That was McCaffrey, not surprisingly. And then the top quarterback went for 52.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, and just so people don't think we're dumb for spending so much on quarterbacks, we have a super flex position, so you can actually start two quarterbacks.
right.
So we have one position where it could be basically any offensive position, and usually the best way to maximize that position is to have two quarterbacks starting.
Yeah, and we did that a while ago because we feel like it gives, especially in an auction draft where you really can do whatever you want. Like as long as you're willing to spend the money, you can get any player you want. So making other positions valuable and not just running back kind of adds to the draft.
Is this
When
points per catch?
we are now, I think, at a half a point per reception. I think we added that in last year. We vote for rules, and half the time I forget what we voted for, and then we
Yeah,
argue
I
about
I
what
don't
we
know the
voted
rules
on.
anymore.
Well, because I
So
feel like the points per catch can really change a running back's value because like a player like McCaffrey or Kamara, like they're probably worth the big bucks because they're essentially a half a receiver too. So like you're gonna bank on all those points as well. So like I always thought auction drafts were pretty interesting. I wasn't sure what was most valued. Was it receivers, quarterbacks, or running backs?
Before we went to two quarterbacks, it was for sure running back was the most
yeah,
valuable. And now that we have two quarterbacks, it's basically quarterback and running back is about equal, and then wide receiver is a little bit lesser valued.
That's interesting
Um,
because it makes sense in the fact that since you can have two, but you think you wouldn't be able to spend as much because there's two quarterbacks, right? So do you
yeah,
spend a lot on
it's
one and then you try to get a deal on the second one, essentially?
you can do whatever you want. I mean, some
yeah.
years
So
I drafted all the quarterbacks one year.
yeah, he
Um,
drafted like 5 quarterbacks one year. That was a good one.
yeah, I won that year because it was everybody refused to pay more than average number for quarterback. This was even before the two quarterback. That might have been part of the reason why we went to two quarterbacks. It was before we had two quarterbacks,
No,
I think.
I think it was like the first or second year we did 2 quarterbacks, and you
Oh,
pissed
okay.
everybody off
Yeah,
because nobody accounted for somebody having that many quarterbacks.
yeah.
So
So my entire bench was quarterback.
half the league couldn't field a starting roster because there's not that many quarterbacks in the NFL. So
Yeah,
like bye weeks would come up and people are like, I only had one active quarterback on my roster.
yeah, yeah. So I basically picked them all, and then maybe made people trade me ridiculous amounts for the quarterbacks so they could have a roster, and I won that year. And then ever since that year, since then nobody will trade with me. So I haven't had a trade in the fantasy football league for like a decade because of that year.
Well,
Um,
that's also the reason we went to the super flex position. Um, because we found out that if somebody decided to draft all quarterbacks, it would cause a lot of weird problems during the season. So we added, instead of it being just 2 quarterbacks, we said, oh, well, if you don't have quarterbacks, at least you can put a running back or wide receiver in there and not just automatically lose, basically.
yeah, yeah. So I guess anybody thinking about doing an auction draft, highly suggest it because the cool part about it is you can guarantee that you get the player you want. Um, you know, like I said, like the top value for a player is usually in the 60s, but if you want a guy, you just pay 70 for him, and people will move out of the way, and you can have your guy. Um,
There's no first pick. There's no like, oh, I got stuck with the 6th pick and only the first 5 guys were good. Like
mm,
you go in on basically even level with everybody. Any idea of a draft plan, you can do it. If you want to draft all Bengals, you draft all Bengals. If you want to identify all the people, I think last year you identified all the people with hard to pronounce names and decided to draft all of them.
I seem to remember that I did a regression analysis on our bidding patterns and only bid on the people that had the highest value relative to their expected auction value. Plus, I drafted Joe Burrow.
That's boring. That's like a regular draft strategy, Eric.
Yeah, this nerd stuff. But yeah, I mean, our league is extremely predictable. Like, if you take the ESPN rankings and then multiply those numbers by the formula that I have, then it tells you how much we'll pay for people. So that's why I had confidence I could do the all Bengals strategy. I did the math and saw that I could for sure do it and get like Kelsey and like a really good running back
and a good
plus all
running
the
back
Bengals.
on top of it. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the Bengals went cheaper than I expected, so I could afford Mike Evans too. Plus, I like Jameis Winston. I was going for a fun team this year because Jameis Winston is, every week's going to be a roller coaster with that guy.
How much did you pay for him?
I don't remember.
$6.
$6. Boom.
You said Joe Burrow was the most expensive?
That I picked, yeah.
Well, most expensive Bengal.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Kamara
30
was
for
like,
Burrow, 30 for Mixon, but then he spent 40 on Kamara and 35 on Kelsey. And like I do something similar to Eric. I get projections from Football Outsiders. I throw those into a spreadsheet, and then I have a running tracking, a 3-year average of what like the first ranked quarterback goes for, the second ranked quarterback, all the way down to 33 or something like that. I do
Maybe
that
that's
for all
why our
the
league's so predictable. We're all using like
we're all using random like
the
stuff
same
like that. And we're all like,
average
oh,
from
I know
last year.
exactly what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. So really, like, we've had a consistent league for so long that it's you kind of know what people are going to do. But I think anytime you have an ongoing league, really your draft is about planning for what everybody else is going to do, because fantasy football has gotten to the point now where there's no figuring out. I mean, you could at the draft without doing any research, just go on ESPN.com and they'll tell you who to pick.
Right.
And
There's no like super ultra sleepers or anything like that where you're drafting somebody that no one had on a list. Maybe
well,
you can
you could
do
get that
that.
list from Super Ultra Sleepers for fantasyfootball.com, but used
But
to be
it's
you had to
right.
guess.
Right. The list came from a place that everybody has access to. So
Yeah,
are they really sleepers? Not really.
no. So yeah, fantasy football is dumb. Don't do it.
Or if you're gonna do it, drink before your draft,
And
have a
during.
fun draft plan, hang out with people that you've been drafting with for 20 years, and it doesn't really matter how the draft goes because that's not really what it's all about.
There you go. I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, it's about drafting all the Bengals, which I did. So if you do it, you're just copying me. All right. So
That's my
I think
problem
that's
is I'm not creative enough to come up with a good like joke plan to draft a team that won't be completely terrible. Like obviously that's the trick. Like if you do good this year, then it was a great draft. Even if you don't like win, if you just are okay, then you can say I drafted all the Bengals and I still didn't suck.
See, I feel like in the early 2000s, you could have drafted a whole team with the last name Johnson or something. Like, there were so many Johnsons.
One time I was thinking about drafting a team of all Mikes, but there weren't, like, there was a position where there are no Mikes. So, I mean, and then, there was a year where I drafted only white players as a joke, not for any other reason. I finished in 5th place that year.
And the best part about those drafts, and that's why, like, when he came in, I asked him what his thing was going to be this year. Like, halfway through the draft for that one, I think it was Whitney. And Whitney is the only black guy in our league. And he's just sitting there and he's like, Foster, are you drafting all white guys? And nobody had any clue what was happening. And we all just cracked up. Like, wouldn't have thought it was even possible. But Christian
It is
McCaffrey
possible.
made it possible to legitimately draft that team and not be terrible.
Yeah.
Do you get Mike Thielen?
Yeah, Adam Thielen.
Or
yes.
I don't know why I said Mike, but yeah, Adam, Mike.
I kind of had to. Yeah. I don't remember
it's possible
everybody,
now.
but yeah. Kicker was challenging. Harder than you would think for kicker. Running back was just as hard as you would think. A lot of fullbacks. I knew every fullback in the NFL for bye weeks. But otherwise, it was a fifth place team, which most years I finish in fifth place. I think I finish fifth more often than I finish in any other position.
Well, again, that takes some skill, though. So if you're trying to do that, that's impressive.
I'm trying to win.
Well, then it's not as impressive.
No, it's not impressive at all. It just means I'm bad at fantasy football, which is not possible to be bad at because it's all luck.
It's very, very random.
Yeah. And you're a stats guy, so like a professional stats guy. So
I am paid to do stats. I don't know if that. Well, I guess that technically makes me professional.
I think that's the definition of being a professional stats guy. Yes. There's no other requirements for being a professional stats guy. So you're a guy, you do stats, and you get paid to do those stats. Like, not just like $5, but that is how you make that's your primary source of income.
Well, my primary source of income is my wife, but it's my secondary source of income.
There you go. Fair enough. All right. Well, I think everybody's had enough of fantasy football talk. So thanks, Nick, for joining us and adding some professionalism to the, I guess, what are we calling this now? Vlog, podcast, Breaker Broz, whatever. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe, like, comment, all that fun stuff. And until next time, hope we catch you later.